Welcome, everybody. My name is Michelle Lavelle, and this is Granite State Home Educators discussion about careers in the trades. We are very lucky tonight to have three gentlemen join us. We have Les Houston, Adam Houston, and Robert Tibbetts joining us. And I'd like to remind everybody that as we get this party started, we're going to record this and it will be posted. So please keep that in mind. Instead of having people speak on the chat here tonight, please use the chat function to post any questions you have, and we'll have an open Q&A session at the end of tonight's presentation. We'll wrap everything up by 8 o'clock, and so please go ahead, post your questions to the right. And with that, Les, if you would like to go ahead and introduce yourself, that would be wonderful.
Great. Thank you, Michelle, for having us. My name is Les Houston, and I do own and operate Advanced Trade School right over in Brentwood, New Hampshire. So I'm here to try and give you guys a little bit of a rundown on why you might want to entertain a career in the trades in general. So we will talk about some specific trades, but excited to inform you guys on my specialties, which will be the fuel gas licensing trade, which is propane and natural gas workers for the most part. Also can consult with you guys on the plumbing trade, as well as commercial driving, any of the mechanical trades that we're going to talk about tonight. So going to be anxious to hear your questions and also give you a brief presentation tonight. And my background also includes a little bit of military service, so I can also talk to you guys about that if you want. I spent 10 years in the Marine Corps, as well as about 25 years now in the energy industry. So looking forward to hearing all your questions tonight. Thank you guys for having us.
Great, thank you so much. Adam, how about yourself? Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure can. I'd like to say thank you for having us tonight. My name is Adam Houston. I am currently a instructor, not only at Advanced Trade School for the welding program there, but also at Pinkerton Academy in Derry, New Hampshire. I'm the welding instructor there. I own my own business, Houston Welding, out of Chester, New Hampshire, and so I do a lot of different things. I have about 30 years experience in the welding industry. I'm also a certified welding inspector. I can go internationally and inspect welds if they desire me to do so. And I have employed that on occasion. So there's a lot of opportunities in the welding field. It's a very varied field, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. But thank you for having us here.
Thank you so much. And finally, Robert, your turn. Tell us about yourself.
My name is Robert Tibbetts. I'm 33 years old. I am a journeyman electrician with Monarch Electrical Services. It's a company that I'm a partner in with my father and another gentleman. I've been doing electrical with him basically all my life, but truly as a job for probably the last 13, 14 years. I'm licensed in Maine, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you guys about getting into the trade of electrical, what schooling is involved, who to talk to, when to talk to them, and how.
Excellent. I know I prepared some questions that our gentlemen panelists will talk about and be able to prepare to answer. I think it'll hit on many common issues or questions that families have if they're teen is considering some sort of trades career. And I know, Les, you've got a presentation. Would you like to launch into that at this point?
Sounds great to me. I think it'll open up the discussion and give some of our participants something to think about. So whenever you're ready, we can certainly launch into that, and I'll narrate some slides.
Perfect. Let's do that. Here we go, slideshow from the beginning. There we go.
You'll have to screen share, I think, that, Michelle.
Yep. There we go. Did that show?
Yep. You want to, I think at this point, hit that slideshow presentation again. So
yeah, it bounced back out. Sorry about that.
Yep.
There we go.
Yep. Thank you very much, guys. And I'll just, every now and then I'll tell Michelle that she can just advance to the next slide. So that's how we'll do that. But right now you can just see We're starting off today with why consider the trades. This is sort of a general, not trying to steer you guys in any one particular direction, but give you some details on obviously electrical, welding, fuel gas fitting, stuff that we know best, but also just try to give you an idea of why you might want to entertain a career in the trades. So we're happy to have you, and that's the logo there you see, and the address is for the school that I own and operate, which is right there in Brentwood, New Hampshire. So that's why you see that logo on there. So today we're going to talk about why would you even consider a career in the trade. So go ahead, next slide, please. So a little bit about the background of the school. Obviously, not trying to do too much of a commercial here, but just telling you some of the things that are out there. This slide is, I'm going to use it just to kind of demonstrate to you the vast or the wide array of opportunities. At Advanced Trade School, we don't teach every single trade, obviously, but you can see just at one location here, we can do a bunch of different things, from the fuel gas licensing for propane and natural gas, to the plumbing, to the welding, to the OSHA, which for those of you that don't know what that stands for, that's an Occupational Safety and Health Administration that oversees workplace safety. So we can get people certified in various workplace safety attributes. EPA, that stands for the Environmental Protection Agency. That what that relates back to is air conditioning. So air conditioning itself is a whole trade, and we use that phrase HVAC that you might see on the screen occasionally, standing for heating, ventilating, air conditioning. That's sort of a catch-all phrase that we use in the various trades. But we'll talk a little bit about today more than just what we see here offered at our trade school, but we're going to talk about all the various trades. So next slide, please, if you would. So why are we meeting today? 4 objectives real quick in a 10-minute or less period of time, unless you guys stop us. Unless you guys stop us for questions. This is not going to be an all-night PowerPoint. Trust me. I did it for 9 hours today. The last thing I want to do is another long presentation. So we're going to introduce you to some trade opportunities. We're going to highlight what the career outlook looks like for trades. You know, is this a dead-end career that you might be considering, or is it going to have a lot of upside, a lot of potential for you to get a long-lasting, high-paying career? We're going to compare trades to other choices. So not everybody's cut out for the trades, but how do trades match up with other choices that you might have as a young person looking to launch or at least entertain a particular career? And then provide you with some resources and links, which will probably just be for show at this point, but then Michelle is going to make the presentation available to you. So there'll be a lot of resources that we give you sort of at the end to try and help you. And Rob and Adam will also give you some additional resources. So that's why we're here today. Next slide. So we don't know if this video will play. Certainly the audio is not, but it might even be worth, Michelle, I don't know if the embedded link will play it, but this was going to be an impression of some people's common impression of what, say, a tradesman might be like. So whether or not you guys...
Yeah, that didn't work. Sorry.
It's okay. Well, if this video link would play over the Zoom, if you were in the same room as us, we could play this video. But what this would have shown you was a very quick, common impression of people's impression of tradespeople. And it would show this guy from the Three Stooges, Curly, trying to do his best to stop this water leak. And of course, he makes a big mess of it. He's standing in a tub of water, sort of a common impression. Maybe you have an impression of a plumber where all you ever see is he bends over and his pants don't fit right. And all of a sudden the crack of dawn is showing, or some other idea here where you might think, oh, the trades mean I'm at the lowest level. The trades mean I'm entering the bottom of the barrel. So a lot of people have this common impression that trades means, well, I've made it to the bottom of the barrel. I'm not going to Harvard, therefore I'm some sort of second-rate citizen. Well, we're going to do a little bit now to dispel the rumor. Even though you can't see the video, just imagine for yourself some, doofus guy trying to fix a pipe and it never goes well. So we'll go ahead and advance the slide and go into the real part of it. So what do we mean by the trades? Here's a quick definition for you. If you have a job at McDonald's right now and you're working your way through, or maybe a job at Market Basket or Hannaford or one of your local grocery stores, you might be working with your hands. You might not be in college. You might not be what's considered a white collar person at the moment. But do you really have a trade or a vocation? Well, if you want to know whether you have just a job versus, say, a career in the trades, you might want to ask yourself, do I have a skilled profession that oftentimes requires some form of formal vocational training, some form of practical field experience in conjunction with my schooling, and oftentimes some form of licensing, right? Licensing often separates us from our first or early jobs at McDonald's where we're flipping hamburgers, but there's no hamburger flipping license, right? In our state or any license. So while it's a great first job or early job, we often don't think of some of those so-called jobs as trade related. Some examples down here, we can include welding, obviously in the list. We got carpentry, linemen, electricians, plumbing, HVAC, fuel gas. You could be a forester, a logger, a heavy equipment operator. The list is endless when it comes to some of these opportunities you might have to earn a very high paying living and work with your hands and have a great career. So we'll go ahead and go to the next one. Automotive obviously would be another trade for sure that we would say, yep, if it requires some sort of certification or some sort of professional training, we definitely want to throw that out there as well. You say, well, I'm thinking about being a tradesperson. We say tradesman, not because that's gender related, but that's just a common phrase we would use. So you could say tradeswoman, tradesman, whatever you want to say. What are some of the traits you might think about? Well, if you're good at learning by applying what's taught to you, then you probably have some of those qualities that a tradesman might want to have, where you're going to take something that's shown to you and apply it to demonstrate that you've learned that skill. You're probably going to have some degree of people skills. That means you're probably going to need to at least be able to interact and communicate with other people so that you understand what they're looking for. You understand what their problem might be that you might be trying to fix, or you have to communicate with other people, maybe someone like an engineer or a home builder that says, hey, this is what we want you to do. We want you to be able to run a plumbing system in this new building, or we want you to be able to give us a solution for this problem. So again, you're going to have some people skills to be able to listen, find out what the issues are, and resolve those issues as a tradesperson, because you're going to be the one that oftentimes walks into an empty room, and when you leave, you're going to have built something, designed something, fabricated something, and it's going to be right there for you to see at the end of your day. You might want to be flexible as a tradesperson towards changing environments and technology. Once we all get certified in our trades, it doesn't mean the learning ends. So if you're looking for something where you go to school one time for a short period of time, get your certification, and then there it goes, I never have to learn again. Well, probably not. The trades are ever evolving. So you want to be able to be flexible towards changing environments. Oftentimes it might even be if you're working outside, as Rob will tell you that, he has to dress for the different conditions for each day or different seasons that he's working in as an electrician. So changing environments, changing technology, that's part of the excitement of being in the trades. If you like going to the same place every day, putting the same wicket or widget in the same hole on the same conveyor belt on the same shift every day, and you want to do the same routine task over and over and over again, that's probably more like a factory related job as it is probably a actual trade, because that's a repetitive type of work, whereas in the trades we're always changing with the environment and the technology. You might be asked upon to work in a crew, or maybe you say, no, I'm working better alone. Well, both in the trades are possible. Sometimes you might be someone that's out there working and designing with a whole team of people and installing something or building something or solving a problem, or you might be asked to operate independently, be a problem solver, and maybe be a troubleshooter in these trades where you go out and maybe you're not installing something or being the one that builds it from scratch, but maybe you're an individual person that goes out and fixes something that's already in existence, for instance, within the trade spectrum. And then this is definitely an active work lifestyle. If you want to go sit in a chair in a cubicle all day long, well, probably not until later in your career you're going to probably achieve that type of objective. As you begin to become more senior, maybe become a planner or a job supervisor of some sort. But for the most part, early on in your career, you're going to have an active work lifestyle where you're going to get up, go someplace, do something every day, accomplish something, and have something to show for it at the end of the day, where you've constructed, built, repaired, or somehow manufactured something that people have a desperate need for. So there's kind of your qualities of a tradesperson if you're thinking about going in any of these trades. Next slide, please. Go ahead to the next one. We'll just skip those till some other future time. So why consider the trades? Well, here's one thing. Sometimes people are saying, you know what? Maybe my resources are kind of limited. So I need to have something I can do maybe right out of high school or something that doesn't involve, going into a large debt scheme where I might have to pay a ton of money to try and enter into, say, my first or my initial career. Well, oftentimes trades are an inexpensive career opportunity where the education is inexpensive. For instance, as an example right now, if you wanted to have a full fuel gas license in the state of New Hampshire where you could work on all kinds of the propane and natural gas systems that people heat their homes with, dry their clothes with, heat their hot water, maybe even pipeline work on a larger scale. If you wanted the highest possible license you could achieve, you would not spend more than $4,000 to achieve that, as an example. Now, if you went to UNH, you might pay more than that in books, let alone the education and the room and board. So we look at different opportunities. We say, hey, trades do not cost much to get into. And one thing we'll find out is once you get hired into the trades, oftentimes your employer is paying the bill anyway. Pathway to immediate employment. Right now in the state of New Hampshire, as an example, you can begin trade training as early as 16 years of age. That's right. Some of you listening tonight are behind the schedule already. You're behind schedule. I had some students come into the trade school just recently, completed all 3 gas licensing courses, and they haven't even turned 17 years old yet. And the state of New Hampshire recognizes that. So the pathway to immediate employment means it's not like you have to go wait to be hired for months and months and months. No, oftentimes you're going to get hired right away and then go into an active trainee or apprenticeship type program. So yes, there's a pathway for you to get employed right away. And then lastly, at least on this slide, lastly, you have a connection to a vast industry with a bright long-term employment outlook. Some of my future slides are going to tell you what that means. What's a bright long-term employment outlook? Well, one thing we don't train at advanced trade school is how to be a payphone repairman. You know why? Because you guys don't even know what a payphone is, let alone be a payphone repairman, which means that trade or that industry is dead. It's dying. There is not a bright outlook for you if you are a payphone repair person. So we will not be encouraging you to go into those type of trades. No, we're going to connect you to trades that have a bright long-term employment outlook where we need you as an electrician. We need you as a welder. We need you as a gas fitter. So they're going to continue to need you because guess what? Being an essential worker never goes out of style, right? A lot of people learned that during this pandemic. The guys that were putting in a lot of extra hours were tradespeople. Homes still need to be heated. Bridges still need to be built and welded. Electricians still needed to provide us power and power generation. None of those guys really saw a setback during this last year of COVID pandemic. That's how you know if you have an essential job or not. Were you going to work every day, or were you furloughed until something happened to your trade, till your industry came back around? Next slide, please. So I just mentioned that there's sort of an example in the New Hampshire rules. If you wanted to go for, say, plumbing or gas, just showing you right away that licensing and stuff like this that we're talking about can start at a very young age, depending on which trade or which field you pick. So there's an example in the state law right there that says anybody over 16 years of age can begin to train in certain trades right off the bat. So just emphasizing it, showing you that I wasn't pulling your leg there. So go ahead to the next slide, please. So everybody wants to talk about money in the end. So we'll talk a little bit about money. And that is, okay, if I leave high school and I want to go into the trades, what could I expect right now for sort of a wage earning potential? Well, here's the good news. Whether you're an electrician, a welder, a gas fitter, a plumber, there's not enough of those people out there right now. There's not enough of these trade people in the industries. So they are very highly sought after. That means you that are thinking about going into the trades, people are looking to hire you because they have a desperate shortage for all of these type of jobs. So right off the bat, we would say that if you wanted to use the gas field as an example, like I am here, you would look at this and say, starting off with no education, day one, first day on the job, that first year, you'd probably make $30,000 a year without any training, education, or prior experience. That amounts to, say, $15, maybe $16 an hour in that industry. Rob can comment a little bit, and Adam on welding or electricians, but this is just an example of the plumbing and or gas industry, for example. Maybe you get your trainee education license. Well, you're going to get more money, up to $35,000 a year. If you reach the first level of a gas license called gas piping installer here in New Hampshire, Maine, or Massachusetts, you're probably up to $42,000 a year right away. A licensed equipment installer, $45,000 a year, and a service technician, sort of the highest level, $55,000 a year. You say, Les, well, how many years am I going to take to get to $55,000 a year? Less than 1 year in those trades that are mentioned right there. Less than a year. A gas license in the state of New Hampshire, you could get the full gas license with all your field experience, all your education in less than a year. We're not talking about 4 years down the road. And oh, by the way, do the math. If you went to UNH and you paid $30,000 a year, you're up $60,000 on your fellow students that end up going to college, in a sense, because you're making 30, they're paying 30. That's a $240,000 swing over the first 4 years that you're out of high school. If you only stayed at 30,000, which we wouldn't expect that. That's just a low example. Next slide, please. So this is just showing you maybe air conditioning, refrigeration, whatever they're making. This is a government statistic. This comes from what's called the Occupational Outlook Handbook. This is not Les making a slide to show you. This comes off of the government website that shows you kind of what you'd want to research if you were going to go into a certain trade. You can go in and look for these occupational handbooks and say, what does the long term look like for this career that I am considering? You can see there all the data. I don't need to read the slide to you. The one that I would look at most importantly is the second one from the bottom, which says Job Outlook 2014, when this slide was presented, up to 2024. It's telling you that it's growing at a 14% average rate, which is much faster than average. That's just showing you one trade that has more people retiring than they have coming into the trade. Okay, that's what this shows as an example. Next slide, please. So pathways to trades, we're going to talk about all these as this wraps up with like the last couple slides here, and that is, where can you go? Well, we'd love you to come to a trade school or vocational school to get your training with us at Advanced Trade School. You could get an apprenticeship, a formal apprenticeship with the Department of Education, Department of Labor. Rob will talk a little bit about how that happens. Sounds like a phone there. Okay, that's gone now. So we'll talk a little bit about Department of Education, Department of Labor, how they get involved with certain apprenticeships in plumbing, electrical, and those kind of things. You can obviously go into military service. That's another place that you can, find a trade or find a career where someone, right, is going to seek after you and not make you pay a ton of money to get trained, but rather they're going to pay you to get trained. That's one of the earmarked things about the trades, whether it's welding, electrical, gas fitting, plumbing, whatever it is. 99% of the time, you're going to get paid to learn instead of you paying to learn. Because if you come get employed by an electrician, they're going to put you into the apprentice program. And then all the while you're trying to get all your trade education, you have a paid job. And oftentimes someone's going to pay for you to get that education you need to make it higher up into that trade. So union halls can also be another location where you might find acceptance for certain programs, certain training, and then certain job placement. Lastly, OJT, always that word, on the job training, right? Some places are going to just say, okay, come out here, we'll put you in a piece of heavy equipment. We'll train you here at Joe Schmo Excavating, and we're going to train you on how to run that piece of heavy equipment. So there are very few that would give you just simply an on-the-job training pathway to that trade or that career. Next slide, please. We already talked a little bit about cost here. I don't have everything that we're going to talk about tonight, but for instance, if you were talking about a full gas license, I mentioned that number, $4,000. If you're looking at a welding certificate that might get you started off into the trade, you could do an intro to welding with us, for instance, for under $600, and you might have you will have a head start, for instance, on trying to get job placements. You could go into more technical training or advanced welding and get more education and be more marketable to an employer for, say, up to maybe $1,500. Plumbing, 4-year education program. In the case of plumbing, much like electrical, Rob will talk about, you might be looking at spending over a 4-year period around $6,800. But remember, all that while you're employed by a master plumber and you're getting paid at the same time that someone is paying for that education. And you say, well, I can't afford any of that. Well, I'll give you some resources that tell you there are thousands of dollars every year, local New Hampshire dollars, that go unclaimed every year at places like New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, the Dan Healy Fund out of Exeter, New Hampshire. These people put up money for people to take trade training courses, and it goes unclaimed every year. So there's so many scholarships out there to get in the trades. Why? Because not enough people are going in the trades, so these scholarships stay available. Next slide, please. Should be the last slide of the night. As I told you, wire to wire, 10 minutes, done. And that is all these different resource slides. I know we're not going to click on all these links, but just to give you an indication of all the different places you can go. So thank you, Michelle. We can take that one down now and go into a general discussion on it.
Awesome. There we are, and we're back. How about that? That was incredible introduction and overview. Thank you so much, Les. So I want to make sure we have an opportunity to have a really great discussion as we do this. So, gentlemen, tell me, how did you get started? How did you find what you wanted to do for a career? How did you find welding, for example, Adam? How did you get started in that?
Okay. Well, as a child, my dad had a machine shop at the house, and we used to go out there and I'd drill holes and things for him. And one day he had a gentleman come to the house that was a welder to do a project with him to help him make something they were building. And I was quite amazed at the process. And I was about 12 or 13 years old. And I kind of knew then I wanted to do some welding. I wanted to learn how to do that. And I bought my first welder when I was about 15 years old, didn't really know how to use it, went out and started whacking away and making messes on pieces of metal and not doing very well with it. But then I enrolled in a welding program, actually the very same one I teach now, and completed that after high school. And went on from there with simply, I didn't have any other formal education in welding besides what I learned in the trade portion of my high school career. And I went on to become a certified welder. I welded high pressure vessels, rail cars, heavy equipment. I weld everything. And just with that, I do have a degree, but it's in something completely other than welding. So that's kind of how I got my start.
Well, how about you, Robert? How did you get things started?
My father was a big influence on getting me started. I started, I said I was doing electrical my entire life, but electrical has so many different parts and pieces to it. Twisting wires is what people call electrical, but there's just so much more involved in it. The understanding the build of a structure or how certain things work really helped guide you in that whole direction of being an electrician. And it was really involved as a kid, being outside and doing all that stuff. So after high school, I floundered for a little bit, tried a couple different things until my father came along and said, "Hey, I have an opportunity. If you want it, you can have it. If you don't want it, it's gone." So I jumped on the opportunity to do it. And yeah, like Les said, it was working for the trades and working while you go to school is a lot of things that people look over. I was able to do that, fortunately, with my father, and go to school, go to work, and be able to do the whole thing all under one roof was great. And I can't stress it enough that it was a great opportunity that was given to me. It definitely wasn't an opportunity that I hunted out, that I chose, but it was an opportunity that was given to me that I jumped on board, and here I am today, loving every day of it.
Wow, that's great. Now, Les, you mentioned in your introduction that you had been in the military, in the Marines. Is that how you got started in your disciplines? Because you've got so many different trades that you're comfortable with. How did you do that?
Yeah, so the jump from the Marine Corps to the energy industry, right? How does that correlate? So my Marine Corps career had nothing to do with what I do now. And I say that meaning I was not in the, that was not my profession, the Marine Corps, somehow doing, fuel gas or energy work. So when I got out of the Marine Corps as a captain, I was applying for what we would call junior executive type positions at different companies. And one of the major companies that were out there hiring a lot of military officers at the time that were getting out of the military were the energy industry sector companies, because they all believed in the leadership that the military presented. So they said, hey, we'd rather hire leaders than hire people that we think may already have some trade knowledge. They believe they can train you in the industry and then, of course, apply your leadership skills that you already had. So I was hired by a company called Ferrellgas out of the Marine Corps back in the late 90s when I got out of the Marine Corps. And they immediately began to train us to obviously to lead the workers, the workforce that was already licensed and trained in the industry and the trade. there was no real requirement for me as sort of the, we'll just call it like the manager, to use a general term. But my admonition was this: I never wanted to ask anybody that worked for me to do anything that I couldn't do myself. So I took it upon myself to apply myself in every single trade discipline that I was going to oversee. I wanted a license or a qualification. So I went out and got my commercial driving license so I could, drive large vehicles that might deliver fuel, for instance. I went out and got my license to go ahead and install gas piping systems or install appliances that run on fuel gas, or do some of the plumbing work or do some of those work. So it was my own admonition to say, from a leadership perspective, to say, if I'm going to lead these people in the energy industry, that I wanted to have those same qualifications and skills that they had. So again, once that road was paved, made it my way back to New Hampshire, took over one of the companies that was out here that does energy distribution, and once again began to get into the training side of this. So I started training new applicants at these companies to go ahead, come in and get the skills that they needed so that they could be successful and get licensed.
Got it. Wow. It's interesting. You have different things that brought you to where you are. So it's not like there's one path, one way. So for these teens and their families who are listening in, there's a lot of different things that you may find a way that that fits for you and how you might find your way to a career in the trades too. Let's see, what else? So in your presentation, Les, you talked about the different, huge variety of ways of pursuing training. Now, if you're just exploring these options, you aren't sure what you want to try, how would somebody, a teenager, 16, 17, 18-year-old, maybe do a job shadow so they even know that they want to pursue welding versus electrical work or carpentry or something else entirely? How would they even begin to narrow that down or job shadow or explore that?
So I'll comment first, and I'll let Adam and Rob talk about their trade disciplines, how they would suggest for a student to enter, or at least get a little bit of a shadow situation or some sort of trial on that trade. So typically, what I would recommend to students are, even though they're homeschool students, they have access oftentimes and the right to access their local high school programs, which often offer internship relationships that the school counselors and what's called career transition officers have already arranged through those public schools. And because those are extracurricular activities, being taxpayers, even though they're homeschoolers, they have access to those public school opportunities where they have already made a liaison with certain job fields. So they could also, use that resource to say, okay, how can I go about contacting the local high school counselor or career transition officer to see what opportunities may exist through my local high school, even though I don't attend. Secondly, I would say is, the number one way to do it, quite honestly, in the plumbing, fuel gas, HVAC, air conditioning trades that I'm involved in, is you typically do go ahead and contact someone like a trade school that has links to all the employers. 95% of all my revenue at Advanced Trade School is a check written by an employer, not by an individual. So who do you think the hiring companies go to ask if we have anybody in the pipeline that they can hire and train? Well, they come to the trade school because they want to know, hey, I'm going to put a job posting there, or hey, Les, if you get anybody interested in the trades, here's our contact information. We'd be happy to allow them to job shadow. So oftentimes the pathway would be through the trade schools or through the employers directly. So I would say that their best route is to go through the local training agency, whether it's the Advanced Trade School, whether it's another school that might be in their area, and they find out, what connections do you have to employers? Can you put me in contact with potential employers that may allow job shadowing? We probably already have a list of those that would do it, so it's going to probably be a very quick turnaround for you. But again, it's matching up a student to go with that particular trade organization that would allow them to come in and job shadow.
Before we hear from both Adam and Robert on that, I do want to remind homeschoolers that there is a way to access the career and technical education programs through your local public high schools. You usually go through the high school guidance counselor's office, and you work with the local CTE regional programs. They're based upon wherever you live. It is assigned by zip code, and these are increasingly very competitive programs. So if you want to have your child participate in CTE programs through New Hampshire's equal access law, and I'm sure a lot of our homeschoolers are familiar with that allows even homeschoolers to participate in public school curricular and co-curricular programs, you need to speak with the high school guidance counselor really well in advance, because these are competitive. These aren't just automatic openings, and it's based on any open seats that they have. Full-time public school students have first dibs access. So that's another way to plug in to opportunities for training and learning more about different professions. So Adam, how about you? Tell us a little bit about what you would say are good job shadow opportunities or ways for somebody to explore welding.
Well, ways to explore welding. Actually, let's talk about the job shadowing. In the welding industry, there's a understood level of hazard there. Somebody mentioned the health risks of welding in the chat. When I started out, we didn't think too much about wearing a respirator while we welded, and those kind of things didn't matter. You just toughed it out, and it was part of the deal. Well, that has all changed. Okay, the helmets, the equipment that we have. The respirators, I wear a respirator almost every time I weld. I'm going to wear a respirator of some sort to protect my lungs from the fumes that are just given off and produced. So the health risks are minimized that way tremendously. But with everything, there's always a health risk. There's always some type of risk that you're going to take. The job shadowing opportunities, companies are beginning to see more of a need to do this and be a little more friendly about this. Many companies go, well, no, insurance says 18, that's it. Can't be, if you're not 18, you're not coming in our shop, you're not going to do anything like that. Those times are changing just a little. I'm seeing more and more companies realizing, boy, we've got to get them in and get them some interest at 16, and their insurance companies are starting to work with them and say, yeah, you can bring them in. They're not going to be able to go like jump right in on the back of a truck or, and go run out onto the exact job, but they can go and stay with a supervisor and be with them and understand what happens and goes on in the field. I've helped some of my students have done even day-long opportunities, and companies are doing that where they open their door and provide a day of come check out what this job really is like. Here's what we do. Come check us out and see what it is. A lot of times they do open those up to high schools. So again, your information about the high schools earlier is pertinent to this as well, to find those job shadowing opportunities.
So you said, maybe a 16-year-old would have limited access for a job shadow, but would a 17 or 18-year-old be able to participate to a greater extent?
An 18-year-old, that seems to be the magic number. They'll hire you right on if you show some interest and you're willing to be, and I, having worked with many employers, helping my students from my high school find a job locations, they said, it's funny how low the standard gets set because of the situations we find ourselves in. If you'll show up more than just the first day, if they'll not be on their cell phone very much at all, only at lunchtime, we'll hire them and we'll pay them well for us to train them. Okay. Wow. Really the criteria, they're so wide open. In the welding industry, there are so many opportunities for that. There's companies around that just have a permanent sign out that says we hire welders. Bath Iron Works up in Maine is doing a huge promotion right now for hull technicians, welders in the shipping industry, military vessels, all those kind of things. So the jobs are out there.
Wow. So Robert, how about you? What would you say about job shadowing for electrical work?
I would have to agree a lot with Les. In your school systems, systems are a huge resource. I work with the Epping school system, and there's a woman there that she calls me once or twice a year with students that are interested in the electrical field. And I either take the time myself to answer the questions that they might have, or Richie, my father, will take time, answer the questions they might have. The other thing is neighbors, friends, and family. Kids might be a little bit more receptive to just having a conversation with their friend's father or their uncle that's might be in the sheetrockers union or something of that sort. Reach out to those guys. I've had kids actually reach out to me at the gas pump at the gas station. You know, the opportunities that they have that are right in front of them, that might seem maybe uncomfortable. Am I supposed to do it? Am I not supposed to do it? Just do it. You know, if you see me at the gas pump and you see I got electrical in the truck and you're curious, ask me. If I don't have 10 minutes to talk to you, well, I'm doing something wrong. You know, because I can't do this my entire life by myself. We as tradesmen need to take the time to take a minute and educate somebody that's interested. We don't have to put a big sales pitch on it, but we need to be there to answer the questions for them. So the two biggest things I can say is, yes, reach out to your school and just don't be afraid to stop somebody and ask. If you see there's something on their shirt that interests you, stop them and ask them. They'll more often than not, you're going to find out they would love to give you the information you're asking for, and it's not going to be a hassle.
Wow, that's amazing, because I know I would think, oh, there's some formal process, and that's the only way, instead of, just finding you maybe having lunch at McDonald's and feeling comfortable to approach you about it.
Yeah,
I'd comment on
I'd be
something.
happy to answer.
I'd make a comment echoing Rob was a great point, and probably should have mentioned it more, but 9 times out of 10, if you aren't really sold on, whether you're going to go in the trades or not, if you ask either your parents or your relatives, like Rob said, or your uncle or somebody that somebody might know somebody in the trade that you're interested in. So they're more likely to take you for a ride along, right? Than if you're just somebody that's an unknown. But if it's, someone that's connected to you, almost everybody knows somebody that's connected into those basic trades of electrical, plumbing, gas, well, something where you can say, hey, I don't know, just have that little connection, right? Might get you the ride that you're looking for a day. It's not like the police department where you got to go down there and, put a formal request in and say, I want to do a ride along, and then there's 5 pounds of paperwork and the parents sign away their life and all that. That's great. If you want to go into law enforcement, go down to the police station. But if you want to go for a ride with a plumber, ask around in your own family and friend network to see, does anybody in my family or friend group know a plumber? I want to go for a ride with them for a day, a half a day. So great point by Rob to say, hey, tap into your own local network as well.
So here's a question I didn't think of in advance, which is really perfect for this crowd. A lot of parents are concerned about homeschooling at the high school level, because they think that's going to close opportunities, that having a homeschool graduate, which in New Hampshire is a self-certification process, there is no state recognized diploma that's issued for homeschoolers. Is that a barrier for anybody who would be considering pursuing the trades? If you see a homeschool graduate applying, is that a negative for you?
Absolutely not.
No, I was saying no, not in any way, shape, or form.
Nope.
Excellent.
It's a positive.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I'd say I count it more of a positive. They tend to focus. I struggle with in my school having to reteach multiplication tables in 11th and grade. It's a struggle. Not something I see, and I see the ones that maybe started out in homeschool and then maybe they went into high school and at the public level later on, but they're way ahead. Nowhere near. It's definitely a noticeable difference, and I think again, as Robert said, it'd be a plus.
Yeah, and so I would echo that too. I'll just comment on a couple of things so we don't leave the subject without putting a note to it. But oftentimes there's, for Adam and myself involved with advanced trade school, if you said, I want to find out if I like welding or do some sort of job shadowing, we are trying every day to add programs, let's say for the welding program, that give people a very small or short, glimpse of coming to our school and saying for very little money, doing an intro program or doing a welding kids camp, just targeted to say, hey, for a very short amount of money, rather than have to say, am I going to go for a ride along or do something else? But do I want to try welding for a while? Do I want to try this a little bit? So there are opportunities out there in certain trades, at least how we've structured it at our school, where you can come and for, minimal cost say, hey, I want to do an intro program. I want to do a kids camp for welding where I get a feel for it, see if I even like it or not. I mean, some kids it's band camp, some kids it's sports camp, some kids it's going to be welding camp, right? And so, okay, so now you say, okay, how do I get opportunities? Seek them out, find out what's out there. We do various trade fairs are done at, I participate in a lot of public high schools for trade fairs, college and career days. Check with your local high school, find out what's out there. When, now with COVID, it's kind of curtailed in the past 11 months, but once this thing passes by, there's oftentimes, right, where Rob's gone out to high schools, I've gone out to high schools, we set up a table and we talk with kids there. So there's college and career fairs as well. Getting that ride along usually means making a good connection with somebody, maybe even at those trade fairs or like a trade fair like this that might be virtual. Just making that connection is important. So.
Perfect. Somebody asked if there's a requirement, if you expect a potential student or tradesperson, a younger person just starting out, to already have a background like a particular grade point average or foreign language experience, or have certain levels of math and science that they can show that they've satisfied during their homeschool high school years. Are there things like that that are academic requirements that you expect?
Not in the electrical field. If any academic positives you can have in your favor will only benefit you in the position that you're taking. Basic electrical is going to start you out at a basic level, but it's going to help you progress even further. You might be open to different opportunities if you work down towards, Boston and things like that, and you have a foreign language, you can speak Spanish. You might find yourself being put in situations where you can communicate better. If you find yourself with a better understanding of math, you might find yourself in the office looking at some more prints and taking a little bit more of a measurements and things like that. Anything you can do to benefit yourself in the opportunity of being in high school, do it. Absolutely. It's never going to short you.
Awesome.
I agree with that. I will say in the welding trade, you are going to be, geometry is going to be pretty important. That's going to be one level that you're really probably going to want to look at, being sure you can add, subtract, multiply, and divide fractions. Get good at those things. It's something we do every single day.
Okay, cool. How about you, Les? Are there other particular academic skills or knowledge that you would expect for an potential incoming new entry-level person?
Yeah, so let me tell you about what's required versus what might be desired. State of New Hampshire right now says whether you want to go for a 4-year plumbing apprenticeship, whether you want to go for a gas apprenticeship for fuel gas licensing, whether you want to go into HVAC, air conditioning, EPA certification, there is zero prerequisite for any of that. Zero prerequisite. Okay. There's really no, they're not really trying to be prohibitive. They're trying to be inclusive. So again, does that mean drop out of high school right now and be a plumber? No, I'm not advocating that at all. Don't drop out right now and say, I just heard let's say I don't need my diploma, Mom. No, that's not what we're saying. We're saying that what's required is different than what's desired. So a successful gas fitter, a successful plumber, a successful, CDL driver has to have the ability, I would think, to at least have some degree of reading comprehension. Why? Because at some point in time, you're going to have to read instructions on how to install a gas-fired appliance, or you're going to have to read some manufacturer's data somewhere that keeps you up to speed, or you're going to need to open that electrical panel box and say, okay, what does it say, you know, for the total load on this panel, and how can I divide that by different circuits? And so basic math skills like Adam described. So in the HVAC industry, certainly there's a certain degree of math. I was just teaching today, and the second level of gas license, for instance, we had to go through, you know, some formulas, understanding the order of operations of math, that you have to do what's in parentheses first, you know, do exponents first, do, you know, multiplication before addition, you know, all that whole order of operations. So mathematical skills in the basic nature are going to be a plus anywhere. Let me say one other thing before I forget, because I forgot to talk about this in the beginning for homeschoolers, and that is public school students and high school homeschool students alike can actually get what I'll call credit for their trade education. So when we give you a diploma from advanced trade school, those students that took that program for gas licensing with me got high school credit towards their graduation for that program. In some cases, their school district paid for it as well. That's even a bonus, but they also got what's called an ELO, extended learning opportunity.
Mhm.
Robbie was talking about Melora Basilian over at Epping High School, who he works with, and so do I. And that is, you know, she'll tell students and steer students towards us that are at risk for graduating because they don't seem to be mastering other, we'll call it conventional learning. So they'll come up with these ELOs, right, for the student to be successful. Same thing for homeschool students. You want to take classes, you know, our programs are already achieving some level of, you know, accreditation, or where I think any parent would say, yeah, you go to a 60-hour, you know, gas licensing program, that's definitely going to be credits for your science, your math, your, you know, whatever skills that you want to apply to it. So just keep in mind, you know, trade school begins, you know, not when you get out of high school necessarily, but even while you're in high school, and it could be a way to earn extra credits. So just want to throw that out there as well.
No, that's absolutely true. So for homeschoolers, the extended learning opportunities, ELOs, are outside of the classroom learning opportunities that they award high school graduation credits for. That's something that they've been doing for several years now. And I like to think of it as a way the public schools are becoming more like homeschooling. They're recognizing that it doesn't have to be, you know, 8 to 3 o'clock Monday through Friday and always take place inside a school building for it to be actual learning. And now there's a statewide program like that called Learn Everywhere. So it's not limited district to district. And these public school kids can, you know, from, let's say, Manchester, take something all the way out in Londonderry, even though they're in different school districts. And like that, it's more like homeschooling, and recognizing those things do and absolutely can count for your learning on your transcripts and your math, your science, and other things. So don't be afraid to use that for your high school homeschool credits. Absolutely can. Let's see, there were a few other questions. I want to make sure we're keeping up with some of these questions in the chats. Does the license cover New Hampshire only for your particular disciplines, or are they multi-state? Does it just depend on the particular trade discipline? What would you say, Robert? When you mentioned you were licensed in multiple New England states, were there different processes for getting those certifications?
No, the state of New Hampshire, the test in the state of New Hampshire is recognized by the state of Massachusetts and the state of Maine as a significant electrical test. So when I get my journeyman's in New Hampshire, it's reciprocal in Massachusetts and Maine.
Well, so that you don't have to go through an extra step and apply it by having New Hampshire's, it automatically goes to the other states.
You have to apply for the license in the other states. There is slight requirement differences as far as code updates and things like that you'll have to abide by, but it isn't, you don't have to take a big test or anything like that.
Okay. So like if somebody were to get an electrical certification for New Hampshire without great difficulty, they can get that certification for Mass and be able to work in Boston or anywhere in between, and be able to take jobs and be on job sites.
Correct. Yep. The rulings, the laws and things like that vary slightly between states. So you have to, when you move from one state to the next, you have to abide by different laws and things like that. But the license allows you to do that.
Cool. How about you, Adam? Do you find that to be similar for welding, where there's that reciprocity?
Yes, very much so. You receive a welding certification. You can do that anywhere. Welding certifications are given out through a couple different agencies. American Welding Society is the predominant one. That's who I have my certified welding inspector license through, and I can go anywhere in the world and do what I do. Welding would be the same.
Cool. Now, Les, you've got many different hats, many different disciplines. So I'm guessing that you would say it's fairly comparable for those disciplines. Is that right?
Yeah, so what Robert described for the electrical side of things is somewhat of a parody for what they would find in the fuel gas licensing, plumbing, and the HVAC trade as well. It's a wide-ranging spectrum. Most guys don't want to try and get licensed in New Hampshire and say Alabama, right? That's not really what they're looking for, right? They're kind of looking for a New Hampshire guy might want to see a Maine or Mass license. Maybe a guy up in Lebanon, New Hampshire wants a Vermont and a New Hampshire license, right? For a plumbing discipline or a fuel gas discipline. So New Hampshire is coming on board more and more, because one funny thing that people don't even realize is we didn't even have a gas license to work on explosive flammable gas until about 12 years ago. How's that for you? Prior to about 12 years ago, anybody could come in your house and start working on a gas-fired appliance, and if they didn't know anything, well, you were going to pay the price in a sense,
Wow.
right? So it's only been in the last 12 to 13 years that gas licensing has come around. So New Hampshire's still kind of improving or kind of upgrading in terms of how they do the gas licensing. Plumbing's been around forever. Again, it's like Rob said, state to states, they recognize certain amounts of training, recognize certain amount of licensing, but there's enough little differences where you have to make sure that once you say get a New Hampshire license, you might be allowed to say sit for an exam in another state. So right now, most of the time with gas licensing, you get a New Hampshire license, you can go to Maine and sit for their exam with no additional training, just go past their test, and that proves to them that you were, didn't get your license some shady way, and okay, you're good to go. Or Massachusetts, go ahead and sit for their exam. Vermont, for instance, if you get a New Hampshire gas license, Vermont's like, we're all good with that. Just send us the money. We'll give you a Vermont license, right? So state to state, right? State to state, it just depends, right? Many states want the revenue. They don't necessarily want you to keep training. They just want to make sure they get your revenue for that license. And like Rob said, if he has a Mass electrical license, his continuing education requirement will be different in Mass than it will be in New Hampshire. So he'll have to do some of that upkeep. So it's not, I would phrase it like this. No one license is probably universal in the gas, HVAC, plumbing world, but in the local regions, they make an effort to make it so you can access the other licenses without going to say 4 more years of school or another year of school or whatever.
Okay, cool. Okay, because it would seem, especially since we're all a bunch of small states, it would be detrimental to try to create barriers for that, especially with a shortage of these skilled trades. A good question that popped up in the chats was, how accessible are these trades for female students? The stereotype is that these are professions for men. How welcoming is it for females?
Well, we call them non-traditionals in the CTE world. And it's very, very easy to access them. I've had numerous female students in my classes, and I will tell you that overall, I've seen female students can be better welders than some of the guys, most of the guys, to be honest with you. There's a different attention to detail. There's a different patience that they seem to have to get the hang of it better. They do a great job. 2 of my young ladies both went on to win state competitions in New Hampshire through the Skills USA program. They did a great job making sculptures and different things. And one of them was on a fabrication team as well. So it's a very, very, very good industry to get into for the ladies. One of my students also went down and became a union welder in Boston. and welded there for a couple of years, and now she's going to be a mom. So that's how they go. So she quit that field right now. So,
Or at least for now, who knows? She
Yep,
might go
that's
back
right.
to
Take
it
a break.
later.
That's right. That's right.
Awesome. How about for you, Robert, in the electrical fields? Is it still welcoming and open to women in the
Absolutely.
trade?
Absolutely. There's no difference from
Yep.
man to woman. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. The job is the job, and everybody is capable of doing the job. It's whoever wants to step up to do it. It doesn't matter. Male, female, it doesn't matter.
Wow, it's incredible. I don't want to date myself. This is going to sound bad, but when I was growing up, these were not the sorts of things that girls were encouraged to pursue during high school years. So there's been quite a change over these last nearly 40 years. I don't want to say that too loudly. That's a little embarrassing, but it's true. It's changed a lot. So that's exciting to see. I'm not seeing more questions on our chat, so I want to be sure to poke around at some of the other questions that I prepared for tonight.
I make
And
one comment, Michelle, if I may
yes,
make a
please.
comment on the females in the trades. So the one thing that we're seeing, at least that these guys have versed it pretty well, it's wide open. I'd say it's even more wide open as well, because what's happening, we're seeing in the trade, I see it in the plumbing, fuel gas industry, HVAC and all that. What's happening is the technology is what we're going to say is starting to overcome or equalize what we used to think of as a strength barrier. That, typically in many traditional roles, a man would oftentimes have greater strength, just physical strength, than a woman. That was kind of a prohibition for the female to say, you know what, I can't lug around cast iron pipe all day like my male counterpart. I can't take a giant threader and manhandle this piece of pipe and cut and thread this thing. Well, guess what's happened? Over time, we've gotten away from the heavy lifting, the heavy manual labor, the heavy cast iron pipes, and we've developed technology where pipes now are made out of plastic. And a 10-foot section of pipe that used to weigh 400 pounds when it was cast iron now weighs about 14 pounds, because it's a piece of Schedule 80 plastic pipe that anybody can lift up and transport or move. So in the plumbing industry, we've gone away from steel and cast iron over to plastics and composites. When it comes to, say, cutting and threading a piece of gas pipe, for if you want to be a pipe fitter in the gas world, it used to be you had to lift a 150-pound pipe stand and then lift this giant threading tool with these giant dies and cutters and heads. No more. They pick up a cordless tool that weighs about 12 pounds. They put a set of jaws on the end of it, and the pipe is no longer threaded. We're just squeezing the fitting on, and the tool's doing all the work. So now a female pipe fitter can maintain the same exact pace of work as a male counterpart, because guess what? The strength factor really isn't there anymore. So it's more gravitated to be more wide open to women, because we've eliminated that physical strength sort of barrier that may have been there in the past.
That makes a ton of sense. We have seen technology change many industries, or even create ones that didn't exist 40 years ago. So it makes sense that it would have some changes in all these trades as well. That's incredible. One of the questions that I gave to all of you before we began tonight was, what advice would you have to teens who really don't know what they want to do after high school and think that maybe the trades would be a possibility, but they just aren't sure? What would you recommend or suggest that they do? Jump in with anybody who has an idea.
I would suggest going out and talking with your neighbors, talking with your families, talking with your friends. And don't be afraid to go to that office where if somebody was to come to my office and say, I think I want to be an electrician. Well, the fact that they showed up to my office and said, I think, means the world to me. It gives me the opportunity to sit down and educate them on what it's all about and what can be expected of them. So go out there and put yourself out there. Ask the questions, be the parts, play the parts. And, if I hired somebody to be an electrician, to be an apprentice, they're on the truck with the guy the first day they're here. And a week later, they're like, I just don't like this. That's no problem. It's no hard feelings. I totally understand. If it's not for you, it's not for you. I get it. but you have to throw yourself out there. You have to try these things out. Conversation is key, but you're going to have to take that next step to put yourself in the situations where do I want to plant plants and lay mulch as a landscaper, or do I want to be roughing a house and pulling pipe, or up on some scaffolding, welding on the side of a building? You're not going to know until you put yourself out there. You put yourself in the situations and find out if you like it or not. And don't feel like it's wasted time. It's not. You're helping yourself and you're helping the guy next to you, because he's learning from you as much as you're learning from him.
Yep, I'll jump in. I'll echo what Rob said a little bit, where I present this scenario to my students all the time when they ask about, should they come into the trade? And I say, well, if you stayed in the trades for 2, 3, 6 months, what do you really have invested? What have you really put out there? Probably not very much, because you don't have to go to school day one when you enter a trade. You go to work for Rob and you want to be an electrician, it's unlikely that either of you want to say you better enroll in school like this second, right? Because we want to get you started right now. It's probably not the best course of action. It's going to be a more normal course of action, whether you're a gas fitter or whether you're a plumber, whatever you're going to be, that you're both going to get a feel. The employer and the employee are going to get a feel for, is this going to be the right trade for you? Maybe they get you an apprentice card that costs a little bit of money, but that allows you to be on the job site. So now you're an official apprentice, you're getting some time built in. So what I would say is I echo what Rob said, and that is, you have very little to lose. If you go ahead and try college and you're uncertain about what you want to do for a career, you're going to spend $10,000 to $15,000 to find out it wasn't for you. You're going to get paid. You're going to get paid $10,000 to $15,000 if you stay in a trade for 4 to 6 months to find out it wasn't for you. That's about the difference I can make, that there's really a big difference when you try something in the trade field, that it is likely you are benefiting the employer is going to benefit you. And guess what? If all you learn about is how to care for your electrical panel at your own house when you buy your first house, you gain something. If all you learned about was what a water heater looks like, a gas-fired water heater, and you own a house, yeah, maybe you didn't stay in that trade your whole life, but I think these other guys will tell you, many homeowners today can't tell the difference between a well tank and an oil tank in their house. They can't tell the difference between an electrical panel and a thermostat. And I'm not downplaying anybody, but guess what? Many people didn't get this type of background when they were growing up. So again, the trades, I even offer a course that we've just now developed for homeowners, to come out and say, you know what, we'll give you a basic homeowner class on what the mechanicals are in your house. So, no, that's not a garage door opener. That's a circulator on your boiler. Don't touch that button, right? Don't touch that, right? Don't touch that, right? Don't keep pressing buttons, right? Don't press buttons you don't know about, because when you start pressing the buttons, it really goes bad, right? So I'm trying to say that these kids, as they're out there thinking about what they can do for themselves, it's never a bad opportunity to go ahead, and again, I'm not just pitching welding camp here, but I'm telling you, we're trying to create opportunities like the welding camp coming up in March, or, like these familiarization tours, or like Robbie's saying, come to my shop, or we'll get a relationship going. Maybe you can do a ride around, whatever. We want people to be able to get a feel for what these trades entail. So that's why we're here tonight. It's about putting yourself out there. And here's the bottom line. You really don't have anything to lose, because you only have 2 choices when you select a career. Honest to God, it boils down to 2 choices. Ready? People don't believe me, but there's only 2 career choices. And there's one where you get paid to learn, and there's one where you pay to learn. College, you pay to learn, right? Now you have to go to college, right? You have to go to college to be a doctor. You can't not go to college and be a doctor. I get it. You're going to pay to learn, but the return on that should be pretty good if you make it all the way, right? Or you're going to get paid to learn in a trade or the military. That's the second choice. Do you want to pay to learn, or do you want to get paid to learn? 2 choices. Adam, you can take over from there.
All right. Seeing on the chat a couple of excited thoughts about the welding camp.
Very excited.
I will say we did two camps last year, fully well attended, and every day the camper goes home with something they've made welding wise. From on day one, they're going to go home with something in their hand that they made from parts, pieces, and chunks of metal and go, hey, look what I made, it's a great opportunity. Coming up, it's actually the last week of February, 22nd through the 25th right now. And if you go to the school's website, you can see that, advancedtradeschool.com, and you can register there. But I think I already have one, maybe two students. There's 6 openings right now. But if I get a lot of interest, I'll add an afternoon class. It's a morning time, 9 to noon each day, each one of those days. And I'm telling you, they built some cool stuff, and I give them some ideas. But once they learn the little mechanics that they got to use, how to use a plasma cutter, how to use a MIG welder, and then it's just like, get out of my way. They just take off and go, and they do a great job.
What are the ages for that camp, Adam?
I recommend 13. Okay. 13, about 13, 12 or 13, up to, 16, 17. I don't think you'll get bored, but you'll just go, oh, okay, this is it. This is what we're doing. Yeah. But if you want something, I recommend 17-year-olds and 18, take the intro to welding class. You're going to get a bigger bite, a lot more information about how welding works. And the welding trade has, you can do, I weld on, I go to job construction house building sites and I weld in columns in the garages. I, do those kind of things. But I also, some of my students who graduated went on and did underwater welding. They're diving down in the Gulf of Mexico, welding on pipes and different things for oil rigs and all those kind of things. And that's another whole career, and the welding is such a wide open opportunity. You're not just running beads all day unless you want to. But you can build stuff and you can go all over the world and do it.
Do you happen to have other type camps for 13-year-olds on up? Maybe like these intro to plumbing, intro to electrical, intro to any of these other disciplines? Is that something that Advanced Trade School might be interested if there was enough demand?
Yeah, for sure. I'll speak to that only because we're looking to add things all the time. So we kind of piloted our intro program with the welding, but we're also looking to say, what can we do, and again, we're trying to make it financially accessible to people where it's not a big money-making operation, but it's more of an opportunity for them to get in there and say, this is kind of the stuff that we would do if we were in those trades. So we've just now starting to develop the plumbing one as well as a gas fitting intro program. Certainly want to talk to Rob and his dad a little bit more. I've already spoken to his father a little bit about bringing in an intro to electrical, where again, electrical has got to be, we got to be a little bit cautious there, but we can work with some low voltage, we call it, where we have less risk instead of running like, say, 120 volt electricity. But so we're doing a few of those things. But to answer your question right now, the pilot program is starting over this past year with the intro to welding.
Cool. No, that's
Welding
great.
camp. Welding
Well,
camp.
definitely keep me in the loop as those become more developed and might be able to test it out on some homeschool kids. So you've got a lot of people very excited right here, Adam. You might end up having your classes filled very quickly.
Great. That'd be great. Look forward to meeting everyone.
So folks, we have only about 15 minutes left. If there are any more questions, please go ahead and throw those into the chat box that you have there. I want to make sure we have every opportunity to have your questions addressed here tonight. So gentlemen, is there anything else that you would want to add that we haven't covered that you think is really important to share?
I'll just wrap up my discussion on, why consider the trades with something I didn't emphasize in the beginning, but I believe for young people right now getting started in life as they begin to think about graduating high school and those kind of things, I believe the number one setback to their generation is going to be one word, and that's called debt. The debt that they're going to assume by trying to go into a college, traditional college type program without a distinct focus. That means you want to be a nurse, of course, go to college. That's a trade. It's a trade that you have to go to school for. So certainly go to nursing school if you want to be a nurse and know what you want to do and be focused on it. But if you're still in that 90% category of kids coming out of high school, not knowing what you want to do, the most expensive place to figure it out is college. And you'll saddle yourself with nothing but debt. So we always talk about this to our students, and that is every chance you have to avoid debt. And that means if you're thinking about military service, get the GI Bill so you can go to college on, on some additional money instead of going into debt. If you think you want to go to college, but you don't want to go in debt, go to work for Rob and his dad at Monarch Electric, make about $40,000 or $50,000 a year, and go to night school or online at Southern New Hampshire University and take the courses that you want to take towards a degree you might think you want. Why? You don't have to get there the first day out of high school. You don't have to say, I better enroll right now in my accounting program. Well, if you can't afford the accounting program, I still believe the worst thing to do is to go into debt, trying to find a pathway to your career. You will be light years ahead if you find a trade, an employment of some sort that allows you to earn money while you're still pursuing that higher education if you need it. Otherwise, I think you're going to saddle yourself with almost an unattainable situation. There's a reason right now why 30 to 40% of all college graduates live back at home with their parents. And the number one reason for that is they can't afford their student loans and an apartment at the same time. They are already funding so much debt that it's very hard for them to get out from underneath that debt. So I'm going to tell you, no matter what career you choose, avoid saddling yourself with immense debt. It never goes well.
Mhm. I will say that I have a couple students who decided they wanted to go back and get an education in business. They went out, got part-time work as welders, working, probably 30 hours a week doing welding, and have funded their school without, and going to graduate a 2-year degree without any debt because they had a good trade to use to pay for school. Now, they did live at home, but mom and dad are very, very glad there's no debt there when they get out of school.
Yeah, because they can get their own apartment and move out of the
Right,
basement.
that's right.
So a couple questions popped in as we were dealing with some great closing comments. Now, none of you happen to be carpenters. So what would you suggest for students who might want to explore carpentry or general contracting?
Brand new carpenter school right in Manchester just opened up about a year ago. There's a whole new one. It's right at the end of right off of Candia Road, right at the end of an East Industrial Drive. Yeah, right at the end of East Industrial Drive. If you Google, Manchester carpentry, you'll see that they have a whole new trade program there that's just for carpenters. So it's a whole
And that's that's associated with a carpenters union as well. So the job opportunities will be right there for you.
There's no license in the state of New Hampshire for a carpenter, right? That's just Massachusetts.
No, yeah, just Mass.
Correct. No license.
Right.
So for any of these trades that you gentlemen did not cover tonight, if people have an interest in pursuing something like the general contracting or carpentry or any of these others, how would somebody go about finding those opportunities to plug in? Just Google it and look for those appropriate training programs in New Hampshire, or do you have a little bit more directed way of helping us find those connections?
Well, again, you may use some of those public school opportunities. I know Pinkerton has a great building trades program, teachers top notch, puts kids to work all the time, and they're all over the state. There's quite several of them in the state.
Yeah, building trades at high schools have the inside track. Almost every CTE program has a building trades program because it's not super expensive to maintain. Unlike plumbing and HVAC programs, which seem to be dying off in schools because they're relatively expensive to maintain those programs. So it just depends. Adam's voice is echoed right now by saying, yep, go through the high schools because they almost always have building trades. Second thing is you start talking to what the contractors want. If you think you want to go into building trades. So Adam and I have another brother that's been a career builder now since probably about 1990 or something. And he's been, building homes and all that. You need to get in with those guys to see what they're looking for, right? What are they looking for someone that they're willing to hire? How much experience? What do they want to train you on? So talking again to those people in that industry opens up doors to see what they want for training and where they'd send you.
Great.
Absolutely. The schools is the number one, but I can't stress enough to, take that leap of faith and, ask the question, stop the guy, we might laugh about doing a Google search and doing that, but with everything in the world today and the way people are and the way kids are and things like that, the person that has the ambition to do the Google search and make the phone call and make the appointment to have the conversation just shows that interest and that drive to myself personally that says they're actually interested. So this conversation is not just a waste of time. You know, you got to read into those little things. You can't just throw it all by the wayside and just say, I just don't have time to do this right now. It'd be a missed opportunity if you didn't.
Oh, it's amazing with homeschooling, you know, they have the flexibility. Our students have the flexibility to have those conversations during the day when, frankly, our traditional schooled peers are stuck in their online learning environments, being online all day. So it's an opportunity where homeschoolers, I think, have an advantage to explore trade opportunities with anybody while still in school.
Homeschool rocks. Just ask my 17-year-old daughter who sleeps until 9:30 every day, right? That's
Yeah, that sounds very familiar. Very, very familiar. Is there anything else that you want to add, gentlemen, as we close this out? It looks like we might just close just a few minutes early, which is great. This has been a fabulous discussion. But if any final thoughts, I want to make sure we have every opportunity to capture what you'd like to share tonight.
Well, I've said about everything I need to say. I'll just wrap up by letting folks know that we want to be a resource, whether or not we offer the particular trade discipline that you're looking for. We'd be happy to try and link people up with other trade disciplines. I want to reiterate again that in most of the trade training environments, at least in the state of New Hampshire, they don't have to wait. If they already kind of know what they're looking for, remember that you can come to formalized, not intro programs, not just, try it out programs, but actual licensing programs in certain disciplines can begin at a very young age of, say, 16 years old, and you're treated just like any other adult. I'd echo to the girls out there that don't stereotype yourself to think that you don't have the capability. In fact, I think a lot of companies right now are looking for that diversity where they get those thinking ladies into their programs, because a lot of times guys, we don't want to admit it, but we all kind of think alike, and we can, kind of bull our way through things. But it's always nice to have the diversity for the thought process that's out there with that a female employee often adds to the equation. I'd also tell female students that because they oftentimes outpace their male counterparts, oftentimes in, let's say, academic skills, they may only stay in the trade a little while before they are tried to be accelerated up into leadership positions. So the other thing I'll tell students are, hey, guy or girl, it doesn't matter, but you have an opportunity in the trades that you probably don't have in a lot of other areas. And here's the number one thing I'm going to tell you as we conclude. If you're thinking about owning your own business, if you're thinking about working as an entrepreneur, there is no faster way than to get a trade license, and then go to work for yourself. So again, it's one thing that you won't see anywhere else. The entrepreneur opportunities in the trades are immense, because once you get that license goes with you, not with the company, not with the individual that may have apprenticed you. You have that trade license, and you can at some point in time launch into your own entrepreneurial career.
Very cool. Anybody else have final thoughts to share? All right, I think we might close this just a smidgen early. I want to thank all of you. Thank you, Les and Adam and Robert. This has been fabulous. I know our guests have been raving about it in the chat here. Thank you so much for sharing your evening with us with so much information and resources. This has been invaluable. This kind of information is not usually that accessible for our homeschool teenagers to have. So thank you for sharing your expertise and time with us tonight. Just to remind everybody, I want to thank you for joining us. This has been great. The Granite State Home Educators did record this. We'll have this on our website very quickly, and it'll be shared across our various platforms. So thank you very much for joining us. My name's Michelle. I want to thank you again, Les and Adam and Robert and all of our attendees tonight. This has been a great evening, and I hope we'll have you back again sometime. Thank you. I'm going to stop recording. Thank you.